So it begins.
Damn right, Theoden. Damn right. Because guess what? The Rings of Power is back for season 2 because the writers felt it didn't receive enough of a beating the first time round.
No, 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 no.
And it's been a quiet couple of years for Amazon's Rings of Power since the first season wrapped up in 2022. We heard literally nothing for pretty much the entirety of 2023 and first few months of 2024 before, bam, a couple of months ago, we got our first look at Rings of Power Season 2. Amazon's chance to set it right, to get people on board with this record-breakingly expensive show before it was too late. And you know what? They might actually have a chance of doing that. Because, to everyone's surprise, despite a certain blonde Charlie Vickers' best attempts, the trailers and promo has not been half bad for Season 2 actually. Take note, Acolyte.
I would say arguably the gayest Star Wars. I think if I had considered
Star Wars, not
it's pretty gay.
Look and see the Anakin blowing up the Death Star.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to get that little Acolyte jab in. But yeah, blonde Sauron, Lord of the Wigs, was a shock. Not a good one. But since then, the trailers, particularly the San Diego Comic-Con one, have actually been kind of half decent. And I was cautiously optimistic going into the new season. Which is something, because I wholeheartedly despised Season 1 just completely. And that's what we're going to talk about today, Episode 1 of Season 2 of The Rings of Power. And for the most part, I have not been disappointed. It was actually a very, very good first episode, which, to my surprise, was way, way better than I was thinking, even though I did have that optimism there. Which, yeah, did spend some time cleaning up after the mess that was Season 1, but it also set us up brilliantly for what is to come. Some of the highlights of this episode was the music. It was excellent. Brilliant. Bear McCreary really did knock it out of the park for this one. The cinematography, as it was in Season 1, is great. Also, we had a new actor for Adar this season after the actor in Season 1 left, but I can say without a doubt that this guy is just as good, if not better. Also, Adar is surprisingly a very big part of this first episode, and not just that, but his relationship with Sauron also takes center stage at the start of this episode. Also, before we get fully into the review and start really focusing in on the positives and negatives more, I do want to address the whole lore issue, because we all know it by now. Rings of Power chucked aside the law, said no thank you, and changed the entire story to whatever they felt like doing. Which, rightly so, received a crap ton of hate, and it deserved it. The way Rings of Power was advertised as the Lord of the Rings, and telling the tale of the Second Age and how epic it all was, but desecrating everything Tolkien had penned about it, was extremely frustrating to us fans. But, with Season 2 now, I feel like we have to accept at this point, the Rings of Power and the creators behind it are not going to change their story to fit the lore, and are not going to try and follow what Tolkien wrote. And I guess we just have to accept that at this point, and remember that this story is not the true story of Middle-earth or the Second Age, and just move on. Try to enjoy and focus on the show for what it is. So with that out of the way, yeah, I won't be focusing too much on the lore issues regarding Rings of Power, even if it is extremely annoying. But if they do make the strange Gandalf, I am going to lose it. Anyways, let's get into episode 1. And we start with Sauron, but in a flashback scene to begin with, which takes up a whopping 20 minutes of the first episode. Which is, yeah, quite a lot of backstory. But again, it felt like they were also at the same time trying to fix a few mistakes and right some wrongs from Season 1 regarding Halbrand and Sauron. How they handled it is acceptable. It's alright. I'll take it. Now, one thing I do find admirable about Rings of Power Season 2, perhaps above most of its good attributes, is how the writers have genuinely improved from Season 1. They've, seemingly at least, taken the advice and criticism on board, seen what they've done wrong, and have undoubtedly improved in some areas, if not all. Sure, the dialogue is still a bit stale, and literally all of the metaphors they try to include to make the show more Tolkien-y, full flat, just dead. But even more luckily, they've held back a bit on those as well. They still improved quite a bit, and that's undeniable. But back to the episode though, and we essentially see how Halbrand comes to be. Jack Lowden plays a younger Sauron who gets brutally mauled to death by the orcs and Adar in what is a horrifying scene, with hundreds of orcs surrounding him and stabbing him from every angle. He then becomes a venom-like creature, which was, yeah, a bit weird, and then becomes Halbrand. What was weird in this episode was seeing Sauron, a Maiar, essentially an angel, become this venom glob thing or whatever, and then just talking to commoners after he became Halbrand like a common everyday Joe. Like, seriously, this is Sauron of all people, and he's just talking to peasants like it's nothing. And it did seem like they were going down the route of trying to make us feel sorry for Sauron and making him a sympathetic character, which I really did not like in season 1. You know, Sauron is this cold, evil, really, really evil being who instills fear in not just hobbits and men, but also beings, great beings like Gandalf and Saruman, who are Istars, wizards. He's not a villain who you try to make sympathetic, who has a good motive and good intentions in the end and wants to do good. No, that's not who Sauron is at all. The Lord of the Rings is a story of good versus evil, and Sauron is that evil. He is evil incarnate. So, with that said, I was worried and annoyed at what they were doing at the start of this episode, making Sauron sympathetic, a rags to riches story, a character who is betrayed by a man he trusted, and is now working his way back up to getting his revenge. No, that's not what it is, and thank God, right when it seems that they were going down that path, the writers course-corrected, and we just saw how cold, cunning, and evil Sauron can be when there's this man stuck with fire blazing him, and basically Sauron, instead of helping him, he steals this nice little pendant he has and takes it, which, yeah, was in line for the character, and all that sort of feeling that you were starting to feel for him that the writers seem to be putting in just goes immediately, which I really did appreciate. We also see more of him as a manipulator, one of Sauron's most known traits, as he infiltrates Adar's lair, pretending to be the king of the Southlands. But of course, Sauron being Sauron, manages to escape unscathed, getting the better of Adar after all that time. Moving on then to other elements of episode 1, one aspect that really did stand out, which has also been consistent throughout the show, is the acting. And man, the acting is brilliant. It was easily the best part of season 1, and already it stood out in season 2. Particularly Robert Aramayo's Elrond, he is always brilliant. Charlie Vickers continues to shine as Sauron, although I'm not too excited when he goes all blonde. And Ben Daniels as Círdan the Shipwright is excellent. And Círdan is indeed a new character introduced in season 2, although he is heavily important and featured quite regularly in Tolkien's lore as well. This is his first appearance in Rings of Power. And his first appearance is fairly strong and enjoyable, with him going on behalf of Elrond to drop the 3 elven rings deep into the sea, where not even Ulmo himself could find it. But Círdan fails in this task, mainly because the sea, or rather Ulmo, does not want him to drop the rings into the sea to never be found again, knowing how important they are. And again, as I mentioned at the start of the video, let's cast aside the lore, because we know that it simply will not be adhered to, and this gives us quite an interesting character arc for Elrond in fact, who, unlike Gil-galad and Galadriel, wants to destroy the rings because he believes that in some way they have been corrupted by Sauron, then known as Halbrand. And even though he is eventually wrong about this, I did think that this was a good little arc for Elrond and in line with his character. But of course in the end, the 3 rings are donned by Círdan, Gil-galad and Galadriel, which was satisfying to see them, with all of Lindon lighting, return to its former brightness and light as it is cured, and of course we get that trailer shot with all 3 of them putting their hands together with the rings on it. Also, we cannot go any further without talking about my singular favourite part of episode 1, the music. Because when I tell you it was brilliant, beautiful, enchanting in every way, I am not lying. I'm telling the truth, I promise. Because Bear McCreary really has created an absolute masterpiece of a soundtrack here, particularly with Gil-galad's song we hear towards the end of episode 1 and which features in the credits. It's an absolute delight to listen to. I really do recommend listening to it. And fair play to Benjamin Walker as well. That man can sing. Focusing more now on the story elements, we have 3 storylines that we follow in episode 1. Firstly, we have Sauron, starting with him at the start of the Second Age, where he was supposedly killed by Adar, and we slowly follow him rise back up through manipulation and being one of the best deceivers in Middle-earth. Sorry, I had to include that deceiver line somehow. He is literally called like Sauron the Deceiver. Yeah. The second storyline is of course focused on our main protagonists in Galadriel, Gil-galad, Elrond and Círdan, regarding the rings and whether they should be used. This plotline, while it may be a bit quiet at times, taking a while to come into its own, is still good for what it is, and I reiterate, much, much better than season 1. Although Galadriel does still always carry that gloomy look on her face, which can never be changed, no matter what. And then the final storyline we have for episode 1 is with Nori and the Stranger, whose spoilers is talking now, which is good and makes their story much more fun to watch, especially as we delve into the lands of Rune. But this also is not wholly positive, because it is very obvious from some of the dialogue and exchanges that he does share with Nori that this guy is going to be Gandalf, which is unfortunate and really not something I want to see, partly because of lore. I know I said not to focus on it, but this would be a seismic change if Gandalf was the stranger. And the other reason is because we have a very good opportunity here to see, for the first time, really, something of the Blue Wizards. We know that there were 2 Blue Wizards making up 2/5 of the Istar, with the other 3 being the much more well-known Gandalf, Saruman and Radagast. So yeah, I really do hope that this is a Blue Wizard, because I am genuinely curious to learn about them, and also making the Wizard Gandalf would be easily the most catastrophic lore change this show has made, and that is saying something. On a more positive note though, I am excited to journey more into Rune, an area, as previously mentioned, not explored very much on the screen or in Tolkien's book, so it'll be really interesting to see how they portray it on the screen. But of course, there are 2 storylines we haven't actually gotten to yet, which we will most likely see in episode 2, and that is firstly the Númenor plot, with Falazon having taken charge of the nation, and we'll of course see Elendil and Miriel in there, and the other being Khazad-dûm, where we'll see Durin again for the first time, arguably the best character in season 1, and that was the best storyline in season 1, so it'll be interesting to see how that continues, and if that makes the show even better than it has started. So then, after all that breaking down of episode 1, how good is it actually? For me, if I had to give a rating, it's a solid 7 out of 10. Probably the best episode of the entire show so far, including season 1, but not without its flaws. The dialogue, as always, is not the best, which in turn does lead to the show really dragging on at points, but to be honest, that is to be expected in a 1 hour and 15 minute first episode. So yeah, a very lengthy first episode, which means that the pacing can be a bit off sometimes, because it's bound to be a bit slow at points, but it is still a very positive start to season 2 in my opinion. And honestly, I don't care if people don't like this opinion and think it's complete rubbish, and that Rings of Power season 2 is pure crap, because I was pretty much that person in season 1, but I genuinely believe that season 2 has improved so much, so definitely give it a try if you haven't already. Also, there is so much more to definitely look forward to in the rest of the season, with the sack of Eregion being the massive battle we are building up to, which will also span multiple episodes. So yeah, a good start to season 2, and remember this premiere was also a 3-part premiere, with 3 episodes coming out, and then the remaining 5 coming out a week at a time, starting from next week. And I'll also be doing review videos for every single episode, with hopefully episode 2 and 3 reviews coming out in the next couple of days. But for this video, make sure to tell me in the comments what you thought of Rings of Power episode 1, if there is actually hope for this new season and for the show going ahead, because of course they have the planned 5 seasons, and you really got to get it now before the audience just leaves. And I certainly think so. I think that they have got something right in season 2, if not everything. And yeah, I'm definitely excited for the episodes to come and for future seasons, if they can keep up this quality. If not, then it could just become worse than it already was at the end of season 1. So definitely comment what you're also excited for in the episodes to come. Also, make sure to please subscribe. This is a growing channel, and just a simple click would be hugely appreciated. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching. If you did get this far into the video, Darth Sauron, out.